All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. And Shalom to the hopeful elect. This is the book of Romans, chapter 11 and verse 7. And it reads, it says, "What then? Israel have not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded." Okay, the rest were blinded. Blessed are ye that have eyes to see. Romans 13 and 11, it says, "In that, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than we believe." All right, a lot of crucial information is coming out. Let's get into it.
Watch this, because this explains everything about modern identity. In colorblind racism, it explains that after the American Revolution, white Americans defined themselves as a nation with the right to self-determination. But here's the key. So-called African Americans were deliberately reclassified, not as a nation, but as a race. And according to this text, races don't have rights, nations do. So if you're labeled a race instead of a nation, you are automatically stripped of political identity, sovereignty, and the right to self-determination.
And the scriptures say that he frameth mischief by a law. Okay, now it all makes sense. This is Psalm 94, verse 20. And it reads, it says, "Shall the throne of iniquity," all right, the throne of iniquity are the Edomites. "Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law?" Okay, as he was saying, races don't have rights. Nations do. Okay, this is the tongue of the serpent. And there's a reason why they reclassified you as the so-called black race. All right, you have no rights. Okay, remember, you're not even considered a person, a people. Okay, it's the Esau's wicked laws and decrees, man. Isaiah 10 and 1. "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." All right, so this is all part of that. Let's go on. And I want to come back and read that paragraph too, but we'll play it through.
Watch this, because this explains everything about modern identity. In colorblind racism, it explains that after the American Revolution, white Americans defined themselves as a nation with the right to self-determination. But here's the key. So-called African Americans were deliberately reclassified, not as a nation, but as a race. And according to this text, races don't have rights, nations do. So if you're labeled a race instead of a nation, you are automatically stripped of political identity, sovereignty, and the right to self-determination. So let me ask you, was race just a description, or was it a system designed to control who can actually exist as a people?
See, so this proves that America is the pit, the prison house. Let me make that point, okay? And we'll go back and read that paragraph here, right? This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, and verse 22, and it reads, it says, "But this is a people robbed and spoiled," all right, you Israelites, you so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and Hispanics. This is a people robbed and spoiled, right? But this is the people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses, all right? This is twofold, talking about these wicked philosophies that have ensnared our people's minds, and also, America, Babylon being this actual prison house, all right, the land of our captivity. You see, they are all hid. They are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth; for a spoil, and none saith restore. Verse 23, "Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord Yahweh Shemir Shai, he against whom we have sinned?" All right, this is all of the Lord's doing. All right, we sin against the Lord, we fail as a people. Okay, we were put into captivity. We were scattered to the four corners of the earth. Okay? It says, who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. This is why the Lord put the curses upon us, man. All right, and we were subjugated unto our enemies, man. We were scattered amongst the heathen. Reading on, verse 25, it says, Therefore he have poured upon him the fury of his anger. All right, going back to the curses. All right, being conquered by the heathen nations, in the strength of the battle, and have set him on fire round about. Yet he knew not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. All right, so this is why we are in this this condition, right? Going back to the curses, okay? This is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 29. And it reads, it says, And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. Okay, so you got Jake looking for a way out in this hell. It's not going to happen. Okay, this society was set up for the Israelites to not prosper. That's why these different movements, okay, these different economic plans, these organizations that were set up to, to attempt to liberate Jake from this slavery, this hell, they all came to naught. Okay, going again back to the curses. Thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. See that? So no matter what Jake tried, it all failed. Okay? Our only deliverance is going to be through the Lord, through Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Verse 33, Deuteronomy 28 and 33. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. You see that? So that's the condition of the battle. This is what we're in this society, really all around the world. Okay, the curses cleave unto us, the scriptures say, right? Now I want to go back and read this paragraph here. Okay, like I said, a lot of heavy information is coming out, so there's no excuse for Jake to be asleep at this point, man. Unless the Lord wanted you to be asleep. All right? So it says here, the American Revolution was a dramatic and historic confirmation of a people, a new white nation, to the right of self-determination. That white nation asserted its right to separate from the larger English society and to use force to do so. Thus, the American white race was proclaimed a nation by the ruling class, then created a state. So-called African American people were never again to be called a nation, but only a race. You see that? Races do not have the right of self-determination. Nations do. A race became something that was not a nation, had no national existence, and could not possibly have a state. This is why they called you so-called Negroes the black race. Okay? You're not considered a people. You don't have rights. Your life doesn't matter. You see how it all comes together? Thus, the term race can be seen as a very important ideological part of the effort to define the white African-American political struggle, eliminating one set of possibilities and allowing only certain others. The ruling class of the white nation, with its state in place, ruled African-American people who were now called a race. The new American nationalism developed in two dimensions simultaneously as a nation state, asserting its rights against other nation states and internally against the development of any such rights for the oppressed races. You see that? Defining African American people as a race is entirely consistent with the notion of the so-called African American anti-nation discussed above. The fantasy of the planter class that African American people could be made to exist, but not exist as a people. See? Let me read that again. It says the bottom part here. It says, let me just read back up. It says defining African American people as a race is entirely consistent with the notion of the African American anti-nation discussed above. The fantasy of the planter class that African American people could be made to exist but not exist as a people. You see that? This is why they labeled you as a race and not a nation. Okay, this is heavy stuff, right? This is Micah 2:1. Woe to the oppressors. Micah 2:1. Woe to them that devise iniquity. All right, what he was reading from this book is all iniquity, man. Wickedness, oppression. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. Right? Verse 2, the point. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. Right? So this is what we read here. Okay, races don't have rights. Nations do. Okay, they reclassified you as the black race, so you wouldn't have a chance to stand up and fight back. Okay, so you wouldn't be regarded as a people, man. So all the how's it go? All the different injustices and things that our people fight for is basically null and void, right? Let me get something real quick. Just thinking out loud. Zechariah, right? 11:5. You know, Zechariah 11:5, whose possessors slay them. And how does Esau slay Jacob? Through his laws, through these unrighteous decrees. Okay? Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. See? Because we're underneath this man's system. Okay? We're in captivity. And hold themselves not guilty, and they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Yeah, your own shepherds, you know, these people that Esau set up to so-called fight for your rights. Okay, they're all in Esau's pocket. All right, to keep you pacified, to keep you to keep you dumbed down, to keep you in compliance with this system. You know, Jeremiah 50:33, and it reads, it says, thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, right? The 12 tribes were oppressed together. Okay? These so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and Hispanics. Okay? Oppressed together right here in Babylon the Great, America. You see? The children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. And all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. See? NLT. This is what the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua of heaven's army says. The people of Israel and Judah have been wronged. Their captors hold them and refuse to let them go. See? So we're still in captivity. All right, so let's play some more here. All right.
It's like the world trying to wake niggas up, but they still don't recognize all the signs. Pope Leo XIV makes a historic apology for Vatican's role in legitimizing slavery. So what this is indirectly saying and proving is that majority of so-called black people that are Christians today are only Christians because of slavery. So our ancestors were forcibly converted into Christianity, and then they passed it down from generation to generation.
Man, how to make a Negro Christian. This is a book written during the slavery period in America by Reverend Dr. Charles Colcock Jones. He was a major slave owner that owned 3 plantations. He developed a system to make slaves more submissive and easier to control by converting them to Christianity. Check that out, man. Over time, his methods proved highly successful and became standard operating procedures for most slave owners. Man.
Our ancestors were forcibly converted into Christianity, and then they passed it down from generation to generation. It says past popes have apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but no pope has ever publicly acknowledged, much less apologized for, the role that past popes played in giving European sovereigns explicit authority to subjugate and enslave infidels. So when Ferdinand and Isabella authorized Christopher Columbus to come and sail the ocean blue in 1492, they did that under the authority of the Pope. Does this sound familiar? The Doctrine of Discovery? The papal bull Inter Caetera, issued by Pope Alexander VI on May 4, 1493, played a central role in the Spanish conquest of the New World. The document supported Spain's strategy to ensure its exclusive rights to the lands discovered by Columbus the previous year. The bull stated that any land not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, and exploited by Christian rulers, and declared that the Catholic faith and the Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere increased and spread, that the heath of souls be cared for, and that the barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself. This doctrine of discovery became the basis of all European claims in the Americas, as well as the foundation for the United States Western expansion. In the U.S. Supreme Court in the 1823 case Johnson v. McIntosh, Chief Justice John Marshall's opinion in the unanimous decision held that the principle of discovery gave European nations an absolute right to New World lands. In essence, American Indians had only a right of occupancy, which could be abolished.
See? Check that out. That last part right there. Okay? It said that the principle of discovery gave European nations an absolute right to New World lands. In essence, American Indians had only a right of occupancy, which could be abolished, meaning it could be taken away, and that's what they did. It's all coming out, man. Let me get something real quick. Lamentations 4 and 21. All right, this is Lamentations 4 and 21, and it reads, it says, rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. All right, you can tie that back to America. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shall make thyself naked. Right? The Most High is exposing them. The punishment of thy iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. Right? This is why we're in that time. You know, that it's a high time that Jake wake out of sleep, man. Okay? This is the time of our salvation. Right? The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins. Right? So this is all coming out from the so-called Catholic Church. And they're admitting their role in the transatlantic slave trade, putting Jake in slavery. Okay? Really the tribes. Okay? So-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and Hispanics, right? That's why it's the spirit. Right here, check this out at the top. Right? How Mexicans became Catholic and how black folks became Christians. Check that out. It's all the spirit.
Be abolished. But the point of this video is just to prove that, hey, they can come out and say all the apologies, they can give the truth, and niggas still won't care because they love them some Jesus. The same Jesus that was given to them by the people that admit they enslaved them via Christianity.
True, man. Goodness gracious, right? 2 Ezra 6 and 27, it says, For evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish, corruption shall be overcome, and the truth, which had been so long without fruit, shall be declared. There you go. I just want to add some more into this lesson here. Okay, this article is from time.com, and the headline reads, it says, how Christian slaveholders, right? How Christian slave owners use the Bible to justify slavery. All right, and we have the article here summarized on the left, and we'll read through it. So it says here, summary of biblical and theological rationalizations for American slavery. Based on the provided text, Christian slaveholders or Christian slave owners and pro-slavery polemicists balance their religious beliefs with slavery by using specific biblical passages and theological arguments to justify the institution. It says core biblical text utilized. It says the quote, curse of Ham, Genesis 9, verses 18 through 27. It says this text became the foundational biblical justification for slavery. Check that out. It says this text became the foundational biblical justification for slavery. In its popularized, altered version, Canaan was omitted, right? Canaan was omitted. Ham was designated as black, and his descendants were framed as Africans, destined for servitude, right? This is why they call Jake, you so-called Negroes, black Africans, African Americans, the black race, okay? Which they got it wrong, right? This is out of the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. It says Ham, the youngest son of Noah, the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, all right? So these Edomites, they know exactly who we are, right? But again, this was their biblical justification for slavery, okay? Using that the curse of Ham. And it's not the curse of Ham, it's the curse of Canaan, right? But the point, we're not Hamites, okay? Ham, the youngest son of Noah, the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, right? Not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, Libyans, and the Canaanites, right? Let's go to that scripture, man. Right? This is Genesis 9 and verse 18. And it reads, it says, "And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan." It says, "These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread." All right. So through Noah's three sons is how the earth was repopulated, right? After the flood. Verse 20, "And Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunken and was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces went backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness," right? And verse 24, "And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan," not Ham, "cursed be Canaan." It says, "A servant of servants," it says, "A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." Verse 26, "And he said, Blessed be the Lord power of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." Okay, so remember, Canaan was cursed, and he lost his land. Okay, and the land was it was forwarded to to the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay. It says, verse 27, and the Most High shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in his tents, and Shem and Canaan shall be his servant." There you go, man. So they got it all wrong, man. Again, we're not the Hamites, we're not the Canaanites, man. But this is how they justified, putting us into slavery. Okay, let's read some more. It says, Paul's epistle to Ephesians 6, verses 5 through 7, and Colossians. These New Testament texts explicitly command servants to obey their earthly masters with fear, trembling, and sincerity as they were serving Yahushua. Right, like they showed you in the movie clip I used from 12 Years a Slave, when they showed the slave master reading the Bible out of context, all right, to keep the slaves submissive. This is how they use the scriptures to manipulate our people, all right, to keep us captive, right? It says the epistle of Philemon. This text was frequently cited because it detailed the Apostle Paul's returning a runaway servant or slave derived from the Latin service to his master. It says Old Testament precedent. Pro-slavery advocates mine the Old Testament to argue that slavery was a common and accepted practice among the ancient Israelites. They also emphasize that Yahushua never explicitly condemned slavery anywhere in the New Testament. Let's get that too, because you had two different types of slaves or servants, right? Leviticus 25, I'll start at verse 40 here. Okay, Leviticus 25 and 40 says, as an hired servant and as a sojourner, he shall be with thee and shall serve thee unto the year of Jubilee, right? And that hired servant is your Israelite brethren, your Israelite brethren. Okay? And it will serve into the year of Jubilee. Let's pull that up. Jubilee in the Bible, it says the year of Jubilee, as described in the Bible, occurs every 50 years. And this is a time when debts are forgiven, slaves are freed, and land is returned to its original owners. This practice outlined in Leviticus 25 promotes economic equality and social justice among the Israelites. See? Let's read on. Verse 41. And then shall he depart from thee, both he and his children with him, and shall return unto his own family, and unto the possession of his fathers shall he return. All right. So again, this is your Israelite brethren. All right. And you had him serve under you, all right, as an indentured servant until he was able to get back on his feet. You know, it says, verse 42, for they are my servants, which I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. They should not be sold. They should not be sold as bondmen. You see that? Because this is your brethren, right? NLT. The people of Israel are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. So they must never be sold as slaves. You see that? Again, there's two different types of servants, two different types of slaves, right? Verse 43, thou should not rule over him with rigor, see, but shall fear thy power. Verse 44, the point, both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen. See that? So it's written in the law that the heathen are our slaves, man. It says, both thy bondmen and both thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall you buy bondmen and bondmaids. There you go. So it's two different types of slaves, two different types of servants, man. See? NLT, it says, however, you may purchase male and female slaves from among the nations around you. There you go. So that's what that's talking about, man. Right? Let's go back. All right. It says, going down, it says theological rationalizations of abuses and enslavement. It says justification of unjust punishment. Bishop William Meade of Virginia argued that if an enslaved person was punished unjustly, it was either divine retribution for a hidden sin or a test of patience that would be rewarded with exceeding great glory in heaven. So again, this is how they manipulated Jake using the scriptures, man. Okay, this is how they justified slavery. Okay, it says slavery as a providential good. Bishop Stephen Elliott of Georgia defended the institution by claiming it was a more effective method of Christianizing and civiling Africans, right? They're talking about you Israelites, man. They Christianized you and so-called civilized you through these means. Christianizing and civilizing Israelites, the missionary work, arguing that slavery taught millions of Israelites self-control, obedience, in the way to heaven. See that? Last point. It says abolitionist counter perspective. Frederick Douglass critique. Abolitionist Frederick Douglass drew a sharp distinction between the Christianity of Christ, which he described as pure, peaceable, and impartial, and, quote, the Christianity of this land, which he condemned as a corrupt, hypocritical, and wicked religion used to justify violence and oppression. Yeah, so that's it, man. You get it. It's coming out. All right, and you devils, you getting ready to go in slavery, man. All right, Jeremiah Let me get that real quick. Okay? Because these devils, they're going to pay. Jeremiah 30. But like I said, you know, it all makes sense hearing this information, right? Jeremiah 30 and 16. And it reads, therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thy adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. So yeah, so it's Esau's turn, man. All right? These devils are going head first into hardcore slavery, man. All right? Revelation 13 and 9, and it reads, it says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and faith of the saints, man, and the saints of the Israelites, man. Okay, this is what you call true retribution, man. And that's what's coming to these damn devils, you know. So that's pretty much the point, man. High time to wake out of sleep. Shalom.